Is it audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So far, what we have seen, what is the meaning of circadian rhythm? What is the characteristics of circadian rhythm? What is the history of the circadian rhythm? And what are all the genes, proteins, hormones, and the clock all are located? And what are all the functions of circadian rhythm? Here you can see the image that you have to correlate the circadian rhythm with the timings of the 24 hours. It starts at midnight. Around up to 4:30, we will be having good sleep. Even in that sleep, between 3 and 5, that is for the function of the liver. Now around 4:30, you will be having the lowest body temperature. So in order, see, yoga is balance. These are all some guidelines. So it is our duty to keep us intact, to function as much as correctly. So it is our duty, by knowing the concepts, that the lowest body temperature will be at 4:30 in the morning. Now it is the right time to start yogic practice, because that period is the working nature of the lungs. So we ought to do yogic practices. That too, we have to start from loosening the joints, and one or two they claimed whether we have to do pranayama first or asanas first, and some of them asked, in Brahma Muhurta time only we have to do meditation. Why you are telling to do in the evening also? Brahma Muhurta time is not for 5 minutes or 10 minutes. It is around 2 hours. So in order to keep the lowest body temperature into normality, you have to start yogic practices by that time. And if you go through today's newspaper, you can find out why we have to do asanas. Why can't we do straight away the meditation? Why can't we do only pranayama, and can we stop with that? What Patanjali tells, you master the asanas first, then you concentrate on pranayama practice. If you go through today's newspaper, you know very well that white blood cells are very essential to protect us from the diseases. So in order to be active of the blood white cells in the blood, we need blood circulation. In order to have proper blood circulation, asanas help a lot. First point. Second point, in order to bring the lowest body temperature to the optimum level, we ought to go for yogic practices, particularly asanas in the morning. If you do asanas in the morning, the fat content, how much we took the previous night, will be digested, will be utilized into energy level. So many benefits are there by doing asana practices. And for your kind information, at 6 o'clock in the morning, the cortisol level starts working more. Around 4 o'clock, the melatonin segregation will become less and the cortisol will work more. It will start at 4 o'clock. The same thing at 6 o'clock in the morning, its segregation will be more perfect, and at 8 o'clock in the morning, the cortisol segregation will be at the peak. That means why we need cortisol? We need cortisol hormone if we want to be energetic, if we want to do our day-to-day works, we need cortisol segregation. It should not be too low or it should not be too high. If we have high segregation of cortisol, then our blood vessels will be shrinked, it will be obstructed, and we will have stress. So in order to balance the segregation of the cortisol, it is our duty to do yogic practices at the right time. And if you go through that, between 7 and 9, you can have breakfast. And from 9 o'clock onwards, this testosterone also segregation will be high in that sense. That is also needed for our energy. And you will be in high alertness between 10 and 2:30. You will be having more highly, you will be alert, and at the same time your coordination will be more suitable. That's why you are all coming to college, in order to be active with yourself. So whatever works we do, physical or mental works between 10 and 2, definitely our working nature will be more, in a fantastic manner we can come into that conclusion. And at the same time, during midday, that is between up to 4 o'clock like that and all, Vijay Kumari,
Yes, sir.
show the picture.
Okay, sir.
You check it up. Don't change without my permission.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
And at the same time, in the evening, around 6 o'clock, our body will be having highest BP. That is, highest body temperature will be there. If you don't look into this concept, we will be intense during the whole night. So it is our duty to bring the highest body temperature into normal. In order to have that normality, we ought to go for meditation. Jhana, we have to concentrate. That time you should not do much on asanas and pranayamas. Before that you can do. Around 4:30, 5 o'clock you can do, and you can play the games like that and all. But during the sunset, you ought to keep yourself in silence. That is, you ought to do, or you can have, that's why in transcendental meditation, they are doing that meditation twice in a day, morning and evening. Morning for energy, evening for relaxation. The same thing, melatonin is the segregation hormone that has to be segregated during night time. So if this cycle, if this go in proper condition, then we can understand easily our life process will be perfect. It will be good. If any changes occur, then we ought to suffer. That's what we want to understand. Go next. Vijay Kumari. So there are certain criteria that you have to understand. The rhythm has an endogenous free-running period that lasts approximately 24 hours. The rhythm exhibits temperature compensation. And very particularly, the rhythm are entrainable. That is very, very important. If your biological clock goes wrong, if your circadian rhythm goes wrong due to various reasons, for your kind of information that you have to understand, that can be brought back in, or it can be brought back to normality. That's what you have to understand. And for your information, our well-being is affected by the mismatch between external environment and the internal biological clock. That you have to understand. Our whole wellness, our whole health, our whole total well-being can be affected because of the mismatch between the environmental factors and the internal biological clocks functioning. So the environmental factors ought to be conducive. That you have to understand. If the environmental factors are not conducive, then we have to suffer. So the mismatch keeps our problems, our difficulties, our sufferings, our sorrow high. That's what we understand. Disrupted biological clock is caused by many issues: physical, mental, moral, social, emotional, and many things, mainly physiological and psychological. So that you have to understand. So it is our duty to keep up that biological clock in perfection. So if it is not proper, how we can assess that we are under the thoroughness of this in malfunctioning of this biological clock? The symptoms will be, you will become so tired, fatigueness, sleeplessness, insomnia you will have, and disorientation. These things now you can realize during this COVID-19 pandemic lockdown period. Because you are at the house, you are not at all going anywhere. So some may feel that they are more tired and fatigued. In order to have more time, they may go for afternoon sleep. Then they won't have in the night. Then the whole functioning will be disoriented. So these are all the symptoms that we can understand that our biological clock is not in proper condition. Next. If the biological clock is not in proper condition, if there is a mismatch between our lifestyle habits and the circadian rhythm, we have to face all kind of diseases. Now you can see the metabolic disorders, obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular diseases, cancer, autism, sleep disorders, neurodegenerative diseases, that is mainly affected by aged people, cognitive dysfunction, depression, bipolar disorders, dementia, etc. Now you can come across all kind of problems. All lifestyle diseases you can come across. And all kind of psychological problems, that is neurosis, psychosis, personality disorders. All you can come and all you can witness here in this slide having lot of problems. So we should not allow to go for mismatch between our lifestyle and circadian rhythm. Next. Vijay Kumari.
Sir, I shared, sir.
Now only.
Right. Okay. It's
What are all the causes? What are all the causes that upset our circadian rhythm? So far we have seen what is meant by circadian rhythm, what are all the characteristic points, what is its history, and what is the meaning, what are all the genes, proteins, and hormones are interrelated, why the mismatch, what is the relationship between environmental factors and the circadian rhythm. So now we are coming into main areas. If our biological clock is not working at proper condition, that means instead of doing yogic practices in the morning, we are sleeping. If so, instead of having breakfast between 7 and 9, we are taking breakfast at 12 o'clock like that. What will happen? We have to be alert between 10 and 2 o'clock. During that time, we are sleeping means what will happen? In the evening, instead of playing or instead of doing some meditative practices, if we sleep, what will happen? And during night time, instead of sleeping, if we wake up and getting trouble means what will happen? So this is a mismatch. So if the mismatch is going on, if we don't adopt proper lifestyle, these are all some of the problems that we have to face. What are the problems? Who will be affected much? Those who are working at night shift work, mainly IT people. And some of the factories, they are working at night time. Their circadian rhythm will be at fault. Overexposure to artificial light, gadgets, screens. If we enjoy TV programs up to 12 o'clock, like that. Frequent changes in our routine bedtime. Sometimes we will go at 9 o'clock, sometimes we will go at 12 o'clock, sometimes we will go at 2 o'clock. So changes are happening. That are also not correct. And some of the hormonal changes during menopause or pregnancy time. See, for your kind information, during this lockdown period, more than 1,000 pregnant women are being attacked by COVID-19 pandemic, that is coronaviruses, in Chennai alone. You imagine. It is not happening in foreign countries. In foreign countries, mainly aged people are affected. As far as India is concerned, in Tamil Nadu itself, 3,000 children are affected by this coronavirus. 1,000 pregnant women are affected by coronavirus. This is happening in India. Because of the hormonal changes, so we can understand, we can't blame anyone. Our circadian rhythm is not in proper shape. That's why pregnant women are being affected. And what are all the hormone changes, very particularly for pregnancy time, we have already seen estrogen, apelin, endorphins, and also relaxin. So these are all the hormones are much related to pregnant women. If they don't do exercises, either day before yesterday or yesterday, some your classmates asked what are all the practices for pregnant women? Can they do yogic practices during pregnancy? Yesterday, one person asked, can children do yoga? So what kind of questions you are asking? See, for the past 1 year, we are teaching yogic practices. You please note that. Those who are listening here, you leave the PhD second batch because they are all, most of them are new. As far as diploma, MSc, MSc Yoga, Yoga Therapy, MPhil, full-time PhD scholars, you are learning yogic concepts for the past 1 year. You should have the doubts. If you have, it should be high in the sense. If you ask after 1 hour whether children can do yoga, whether pregnant women can do yoga, whether pranayama can be done before asanas, if you ask these questions, then it hurts the teachers like us. So it shows that you are not attending the classes perfectly. That's what we come to that conclusion. So please understand, your question should enlighten others. That is not this is not the platform to ask your basic questions, what we taught already. That you can contact by individually and you can get your doubts clear. So many times I told, yogic practices are very, very essential, not only menopausal women, but pregnant women also. Because for pregnant women as well as the fetus, metabolic health is very essential. In order to have the metabolic health, we ought to do yogic practices. That pregnant women ought to do yogic practice. In order to keep the hormone, very particularly estrogen and apelin, very much needed for pregnant women. And also another reason is jet lag. For example, if you go to Brazil, for example, if you are going to Sharjah or Dubai, it will take 4 hours. You can go by air to Sharjah or Dubai before going into Tirchi. Tirchi it will take 6 hours. But Sharjah you can go by 4 hours. But it is not the same for all. If you want to go to Germany, it will take 8 hours minimum. Suppose if you want to go to Brazil, definitely you have to spend around 13 or 14 hours. And the climatic conditions and their country's temperature will be different. So that fatigueness, jet lag, fatigueness will harm your circadian rhythm. And drugs and alcohol also. So for your kind information, among 130 crore Indians, 28.6% are smokers, cigarette smokers, or BD smokers. The same thing, around 24% of Indians are alcoholics. If it is so, you think how we can become a #1 country? Half of them, and you know very well whether it is alcohol or tobacco, they won't affect you alone. 7 generations it will affect. Your genes will be mutilated. So 7 generations that problems will carry on in your genes. That much harmful concept that drugs and alcohol. And the physical inactivity, as you know very well, sedentary life, you know, improper diet pattern, you know, and all other external environmental factors. For example, you take pollution. You now lockdown period, it is okay somehow. Before lockdown, can you be at Delhi freely or in Chennai? Out of all the cities in the world, they have done survey. 14 of the 20 cities in the world are from India. Now imagine, in these polluted cities, how can you do Sitali Pranayam, Sitari Pranayam, Sadanta Pranayam? Huh? So these are all the things that we are suffering here. Next slide, Vijay Kumari.
Yes, sir.
Now we know what are all the causes. So it is our duty to rectify that causes, rectify the problems. And already I told you, some of the practices can retrain or reset the circadian rhythm. Your body, that's what we have seen in yoga therapy, healing force within himself. We no need to go anywhere. We can get cured ourselves. That's what last year's Nobel Prize winners, they found. Here there are so many remedies to reset your circadian rhythm. You know very well. So I am so fatigued, ரொம்ப டயர்டா இருக்கேன், என்னமோ தெரியல, என்னமோ மாதிரி இருக்கு, தூக்கம் வர மாதிரி இருக்கு, தூங்கணும்னு தோணுது. இப்படி எல்லாம் இருந்தா நீங்க you can understand that your circadian rhythm is not in proper condition. So what you can do, you can have stabilized sleep. Wake up routine you have to have properly. Eating dinner in time close to sunset. Sunsetக்கு கொஞ்சம் around 7 o'clock you have to finish your dinner. Eat only after sunrise. Around 7 o'clock only you have to take your breakfast. You ought to take your breakfast. Timely and early breakfast is essential to avoid an acidic environment. In order to overcome that acidity, you ought to take your breakfast. Expose more to natural light, vitamin D by sun rays. Already I told you, if you stare the sun rays in the early morning around 7 o'clock, you will get infrared rays. A few minutes, 1 or 2 minutes enough. So stare at the rising or setting sun for at least 2 to 3 minutes. Shield yourself from artificial light. Don't look into that. Don't use artificial light during night time. That's what we are suffering. Because of the technological development, you could have seen the Huang, that area in China. That is the place where this corona started. During night time, it looks like a daytime because of that lights, artificial lights were more there. And you have balanced sattvic diet. And you please have music. Listen at least music. Some of the ragas are very helpful. Ananda Bhairavi, Indola Ragam, Desh, and this Ahir Bhairav, Reti Gaula, and Darbari, Kannada, Shahana. These are all some of the ragas in music will be more helpful during anxiety period. Anxiety disorders, these are all good ragas. And do yoga and meditation as you know very well. And if you reset your circadian rhythm, your quality of life will be good and you can have your lifespan in an increased state. You can live long with quality orientedness. Next. So according to yoga, these are all the 8 observations you have to follow in your life. Too much of talking or talking around is not advisable. Continuous travel you have to avoid. Being highly mobile, that is movement, it is not advisable. Excessive sedentary habits not good. Consuming a heavy indigestible diet not advisable. Consuming unwhole or incompatible food items you have to avoid. Don't sleep during daytime and don't have excessive sexual activities. If you leave all these things and if you follow the right kind of habits of circadian rhythm, then your life will be fruitful. You can live long, at the same time your quality will be high. Next. So there are the main concept is these are all preventive and regular yogic practices. So each and every person will have his own yogic practices. You take example of Iyengar, Shivananda, and Magesh Maharishi, Vedatri Maharishi, and Krishnamacharya, Vikram Chaudhary, all are having their own practices. As far as my experience is concerned, I advise these kind of yogic practices that you have to follow in day-to-day category. That is, each and every morning you have to do at least from half an hour to 1 hour. These are all the yogic practices you can do. It is an all-round, you can prevent regular practices for healthy person. Next, you go fast, Vijay Kumari. This is Surya Namaskar. Next, Trikonasana. Go one by one. Padagasasana, Parvatanasana, equivalent to Sirasasana. This is Halasana to remove laziness. Dhanurasana, good for women. It combines Bhujangasana and Salabhasana, Ustrasana. All systems will be promoted. All 9 systems will be promoted by this Ustrasana. Navasana is good for better immunity power. Ardha Machendrasana for calmness. Next. Paschimottanasana. Next. Shashangasana. If you don't have sleep, you do it. Definitely you will sleep within 5 minutes in the night. Next. Bhadakonasana, mainly important for women. Natural delivery will happen instead of going for cesarean. These pranayama practices are very much needed. Kapalabhati you have to do in Bhatmasana because if you do Bhatmasana, physiological benefits will be more. Next. And Bhastrika Pranayam, do it in Vajrasana, 72,000 nadis will be activated. Next. Nadi Shodhana Pranayam, it can be done by all. And finally, you have to do meditation that you know very well. Next. So at least And these are all some of the very important concepts for yoga therapy students.
Yes. Excuse
So
me,
when
sir.
you treat the patients, yes,
Sir, the meeting is going to be
yes,
end in another few minutes, sir.
40 minutes, you know,
Yes, sir. We have 3 more minutes
that I
only.
know.
Now 3 more minutes
No,
only.
that 3 more minutes for what?
Going to be end the section, sir, and again we can join, sir.
Again, let us join again for
Yes, sir.
another 5 minutes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You change it now.
Sir, this slide is okay, sir. Shall I change the slide?
Same slide should be
Okay,
for
sir.
next session.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. We will
Now,
end up.
now itself you change it. End it.
Okay, sir.
Now it's
Yeah, okay,
end
sir.
the session and join back.
You have to join back for another five minutes
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
because it is very important.